Jake had always been the curious type, while other people his age were busy with normal jobs on Earth. He was out here on Nexus 7, one of the biggest trading stations in the galaxy. His job was simple: study alien life forms and write reports about them. It wasn't the most exciting work, but it paid well and gave him chances to see things most humans could only dream about. The trading station was huge, like a floating city in space. It had everything: restaurants serving food from dozens of different worlds, shops selling strange gadgets, and markets where you could buy almost anything. Jake lived in a small apartment on level 15, and every day he would take the elevator down to the research labs on level 8. But today was different. Today Jake was feeling restless. He had finished his work early and was wandering around the station's lower levels, places he rarely visited. These areas were darker, less clean than the upper levels. The air smelled different too, like oil and something else he couldn't quite place. He noticed there were fewer security cameras here, and the people walking around looked like they were trying not to be seen. Jake was about to turn back when he heard voices coming from behind a heavy metal door. The sign on the door was in a language he didn't recognize, but there was something about the sounds coming from inside that made him curious. He could hear what sounded like an announcer speaking loudly and crowds of people responding, without really thinking about it. Jake pushed the door open and stepped inside. The room was bigger than he expected, with rows of seats facing a raised platform. The lighting was dim, and most of the people in the audience were wearing hoods or hats that covered their faces. On the platform stood a tall, thin creature with blue skin and 4 arms. This was clearly the announcer, and he was speaking in several languages at once, thanks to a universal translator device around his neck. Welcome to tonight's special auction," the blue creature was saying. "Tonight we have some very rare items for sale, things you won't find in the regular markets upstairs." Jake found an empty seat in the back row and sat down, trying to blend in. He had heard rumors about underground auctions on the station, but he had never seen one before. Most of the items being sold seemed to be stolen goods or things that weren't quite legal to trade in the regular markets. The first few items were boring: some kind of rare crystals, a damaged spacecraft engine, and a collection of ancient books. From a dead civilization, Jake was starting to think about leaving when the announcer's voice got louder and more excited. "Now, ladies and gentlemen, we have something very special," the blue creature announced. "Direct from the Luminari homeworld. We have a genuine princess of the royal bloodline." The crowd suddenly got very quiet. Jake leaned forward in his seat, not sure what to expect. The Luminari were famous throughout the galaxy for being incredibly beautiful. They looked almost human, but their skin glowed with a soft inner light, and their eyes were like looking into stars. Jake had seen pictures of them before, and they were stunning. But when the guards brought out the princess, Jake felt his heart sink. She was nothing like the pictures he had seen. Her skin was rough and bumpy, with dark patches all over it. Eyes were cloudy white, clearly blind. She moved slowly and carefully, feeling her way with her hands. The beautiful glow that all Luminari were supposed to have was completely missing. The crowd started making rude comments immediately. "That's supposed to be a princess." Someone laughed. "She's hideous." Another person shouted, "What's wrong with her skin?" The announcer held up his hands for quiet. Yes, I know what you're thinking. She's not exactly what you'd expect from a Luminari princess. But let me tell you her story." Walked over to where the princess was standing and continued talking. "This is Princess Zara of the Luminari royal family. She was born blind, and as you can see, she doesn't have the traditional beauty of her people. Her own family decided they couldn't keep her around anymore. Too embarrassing, they said. So they sent her here to be sold to whoever wants her." Felt sick to his stomach. The Princess Zara was standing there listening to all of this, and he could see that she understood every word. Her translator collar was working perfectly, so she knew exactly what people were saying about her. But what surprised him was that she wasn't crying or looking scared. She was standing straight, with her head held high, like she still had some dignity left. So what can she do? Someone in the crowd yelled out. The announcer shrugged. Not much, to be honest. But she can't see, obviously. Her people say she's not very smart, But hey, she's still a real princess. That's got to be worth something, right? More laughter from the crowd. Jake noticed that Zara's hands were shaking slightly, but she still didn't break down.
Let's start.
The bidding at 500 credits, the announcer called out. No one raised their hand. Okay, 250 credits. Still nothing. Come on, people. 100 credits? She's a princess. Finally, a rough-looking man in the front row raised his hand. 50 credits, he said with a nasty smile. I could use some help cleaning my ship. Jake felt anger rising in his chest. This was wrong. This whole thing was wrong. Zara was a living being, not a piece of property to be sold. And even if she wasn't beautiful by her people's standards, she was still a person who deserved to be treated with respect. 75 credits. Jake heard himself saying, and he was surprised to realize the voice was his own. Everyone turned to look at him. The rough man in the front row glared at him. 100 credits, the man said angrily. Jake's heart was racing. He didn't have much money saved up, but he couldn't let this happen. 150 credits. 200. The rough man shouted back. Jake looked at Zara. She had turned her head toward the sound of his voice. And even though she couldn't see him, he felt like she was looking right at him. There was something in her expression that made him think she was actually listening to what was happening. Really listening, not just hearing the words. 500 credits, Jake called out, using up most of his savings in one go. The room went quiet. The rough man looked angry, but he shook his head and sat back down. 500 credits was more than most people thought she was worth. 500 credits going once. The announcer called out excitedly, going twice. Sold to the human in the back row. Jake stood up on shaky legs and walked down to the platform. As he got closer to Zara, he noticed things that the crowd had missed. Her rough skin wasn't ugly. It had interesting patterns on it. It's like natural art. And her cloudy eyes weren't empty. There was intelligence there, and something else. Awareness. Congratulations on your purchase, the announcer said to Jake, as he handed over his credit chip. She's all yours now. Jake looked at Zara and spoke directly to her. My name is Jake. I'm going to take you somewhere safe. For the first time since he'd seen her, Zara smiled. It was a small smile, but it was real. Thank you, she said quietly. Her voice was soft and musical, nothing like what he'd expected, as Jake led her out of the auction room. He realized he had no idea what he was going to do next. He had just spent most of his money on buying a person, which felt wrong even though he was trying to help. He had a tiny apartment, barely enough food for himself, and a job that took up most of his time. But as they walked through the corridors of the station together, Zara moving carefully beside him, Jake felt like he had done the right thing. Whatever happened next, at least she was away from that horrible place and those terrible people. He just hoped he could figure out how to help her from here. Jake's apartment had never felt so small. As he helped Zara through the door, he suddenly realized how unprepared he was for this situation. His place was tiny, just one room with a bed, a small kitchen area, and a bathroom. He had exactly one chair, one plate, and barely enough food for himself. Sorry about the mess, he said, even though his apartment was actually pretty clean. He was just nervous. Zara stood quietly by the door, her head tilted slightly as if she was listening to something. It's not messy, she said softly. I can tell you keep things organized? Jake was surprised. How can you tell that? Sound travels differently in organized spaces, she explained. Your footsteps echo in a regular pattern. If there were things scattered around, the sounds would be more chaotic. It was interesting. Jake had never thought about how sound could tell you about a room's layout. He watched as Zara slowly moved forward, her hands held out in front of her. She walked carefully but confidently, like she was mapping the space in her mind. There's a table here, she said, stopping just before her hands touched his small dining table. And a cooking area to the left. The bed is against the far wall. She was exactly right. Jake stared at her in amazement. How did you know all that? Practice. Zara said simply. When you can't see, you learn to use everything else. Jake pulled out his only chair for her to sit down. Are you hungry? I don't have much, but I can make something. You don't have to take care of me, Zara said, but she sat down anyway. I know you bought me because you felt sorry for me. But I'm not helpless. There was something sharp in her voice that made Jake pause. He realized that she was testing him, trying to figure out what he really wanted from her. I didn't buy you because I felt sorry for you, Jake said, sitting on the edge of his bed, since there was nowhere else to sit. I bought you because what was happening was wrong. Nobody should be sold like that. Zara's expression didn't change. People say things like that, but they usually want something in return. Jake could hear the pain in her voice, and he wondered what kind of experiences she'd had to make her so suspicious. What do you think I want? I don't know yet, she admitted, but everyone wants something. My own family wanted me gone because I was embarrassing them. Traders wanted to make money off me. People at the auction wanted cheap help or entertainment. The way she said it so matter-of-factly made Jake's heart ache. She was talking about being rejected and sold like it was just normal life. Well, I want to help you figure out what you want to do next, Jake said. This is your choice. You can stay here as long as you need to, or I can help you find somewhere else to go. No strings attached. Zara was quiet for a long moment. Then she asked, "What do you do for work?" "I study alien cultures and biology," Jake explained. "I write reports about different species and how they live. It's not very exciting. You study my people a little bit. Mostly I work with species that are new to human contact. The Luminari have been known to humans for decades." Zara nodded slowly. "What do your reports say about us?" Jake felt uncomfortable. Most of the official reports about the Luminari focused on their beauty and their advanced technology. He realized that someone like Zara probably wasn't mentioned in any of the studies he'd read. "They talk about how beautiful your people are," he said honestly, "and how intelligent. But I'm starting to think those reports are missing a lot of important information." "Like what?" "Like how someone who can navigate a completely new room perfectly in just a few minutes might have abilities that are more important than what someone looks like." Zara's posture changed slightly. She sat up straighter, and Jake thought he saw a hint of surprise on her face. Over the next few days, Jake learned more about Zara than any scientific report had ever taught him about the Luminari. She was incredibly smart, much smarter than the auction announcer had claimed. She spoke 7 different languages fluently and could do complex math in her head faster than Jake could with a calculator. But more than that, she seemed to know things she shouldn't be able to know on the second day. Jake came home from work feeling frustrated because he'd had an argument with his supervisor. He hadn't said anything about it, but as soon as he walked through the door, Zara looked up and said, "Bad day at work. How did you know? Your breathing changed. Your footsteps were heavier. Plus, you're gripping your bag tighter than usual." Jake set down his bag and stared at her. "You can tell all that just from listening?" "Sound tells you a lot about how people are feeling," Zara said. "When you're angry, your heart beats faster, which changes how you breathe. When you're sad, you move more slowly. When you're happy, you walk with a bounce in your step." It was like she had a superpower. Jake started paying more attention to how much Zara was picking up about the world around her. When the neighbors in the apartment next door were having a quiet argument, she knew about it before Jake heard anything. When the food delivery guy was coming down the hallway, she knew which apartment he was going to before he knocked. "Have you always been able to do this?" Jake asked one evening as they shared dinner. "Do what, read people like this? Know what? They're feeling and thinking." Zara was quiet for a moment. "My family always said it was weird. They said I was too sensitive, that I made people uncomfortable by knowing too much about them. But that's an incredible ability," Jake said. "Can understand people in ways that most of us can't. It doesn't matter if you're too ugly for people to want to be around you," Zara said bitterly. Jake felt a flash of anger, not at her, but at the people who had made her believe that about herself. "You're not ugly, Zara. You're different. There's a big difference. You're just being nice." "No, I'm not. I'm being honest. Beauty isn't just about what someone looks like. It's about who they are, what they can do, how they make the world better. And from what I've seen, you have more real beauty than most people I've met." Zara turned her face toward him. Jake realized it was the first time she'd looked directly at him since they'd been talking. Her cloudy eyes couldn't see him, but somehow he felt like she was really seeing him anyway. "Why are you being so kind to me?" she asked quietly. "Because you deserve kindness," Jake said. "And because I'm starting to think that maybe you're not the one who needs help here. Hey, maybe I'm the one who's been missing something important." The first time since he'd known her, Zara smiled a real smile. Not the polite, careful smile she'd given him at the auction, but a genuine, warm smile that lit up her whole face. And Jake realized that the auction announcer had been completely wrong about one thing. Zara wasn't broken or defective at all. She was extraordinary. The problem was that no one had ever bothered to look closely enough to see it. Jake couldn't sleep. It was 3 a.m, and he was sitting at his desk, staring at his computer screen. For the past week, he'd been researching everything he could find about the Luminari. And what he was discovering was making him more and more excited. Zara was sleeping peacefully on his bed while he had made himself comfortable on the floor with some blankets. She had insisted that she didn't need the bed. But Jake wasn't about to let a princess sleep on the floor, no matter what her family thought of her. The more he read about Luminar history, the more confused he became. All the modern information focused on their physical beauty and their advanced technology, but when he dug deeper into older records, he found something completely different. Ancient Luminari texts talked about something called the gift of true sight. According to these old writings, some Luminari were born with cloudy eyes that couldn't see the physical world, but could see something much more important: emotions and intentions of other people. Jake's heart started beating faster as he read more. The ancient texts said that these special Luminari were considered the most important members of their society. They were the ones who became healers, counselors, and spiritual guides. They were the ones who could solve conflicts and bring peace between warring groups, but according to the historical records, something had changed about 200 years ago. The Luminari had started focusing more and more on physical appearance and material wealth. The old traditions were forgotten. The people who had once been considered blessed were now seen as cursed. Jake looked over at Zara, who was sleeping. Quietly, could it be possible that she had this ancient gift? It would explain so much about her abilities to read people and situations. He kept reading, and then he found something that made him gasp out loud. There was a mention of a device called an empathy amplifier that had been created by the ancient Rithria to help those with true sight use their abilities more effectively. The device was supposed to be incredibly rare and valuable. Jake spent the next few hours searching through trading databases and auction records. Finally, just as the sun was starting to rise, he found what he was looking for. There was an antique dealer on level 42 of the station who claimed to have authentic Luminari artifacts. "Jake?" Zara's voice was soft and concerned. "You've been awake all night, I can tell from your breathing." Jake turned around to see her sitting up in bed, her hair messy from sleep. "I found something amazing," he said, trying to keep his voice down so he wouldn't wake the neighbors. "Something about your people's history?" Zara got up and walked over to him, moving confidently around the furniture like she'd been living there for years instead of just a week. "What kind of history?" Jake started explaining what he'd learned about the ancient Luminari and their beliefs about people like her. As he talked, he watched Zara's expression change from curiosity to amazement to something that looked like hope. "You're saying that people like me were once considered special?" she asked quietly. "Not just special. Sacred. The most important people in your entire society." Zara sat down on the floor next to him, and Jake could see that she was trying not to get too excited, but that was a long time ago. Things are different now. "Maybe they don't have to be," Jake said. "What if I could get you one of these empathy amplifiers? What if we could prove that you have abilities that are more valuable than physical beauty?" Zara was quiet for a long moment. "Jake, those devices are just legends. Even if they were real, they would cost more money than either of us has." "Let me worry about that," Jake said. "I have some savings and I can sell some things." "You already spent most of your money on me," Zara protested. "I can't let you do that." "You're not letting me do anything," Jake said firmly. "I'm choosing to do this. I'm not doing it just for you. I'm doing it because I think the galaxy needs to know about people like you." Later that morning, Jake called in sick to work and took Zara with him to level 42. The antique dealer was a small, elderly creature with 6 arms and a voice that sounded like gravel. His shop was crammed full of strange objects from dozens of different worlds. Luminary artifacts? The dealer said when Jake explained what they were looking for. Oh yes, I have a few pieces. Very rare, very expensive. Led them to a display case in the back of the shop. Inside were several glowing crystals and what looked like jewelry made of light itself. And there in the center of the case was a small silver device that looked like a cross between a headband and a pair of glasses. That's it, Jake whispered. That's an empathy amplifier. The dealer's eyes lit up with dollar signs. You know what it is? Very good, very good. That piece is 5,000 credits. Jake's heart sank. He had maybe 800 credits left to his name. Is there any way you could take less? I'm afraid not, the dealer said. These devices are incredibly rare. I've only seen 2 others in my entire career. Looked at Zara, who was standing very still beside him. Could tell she was disappointed, but she was trying not to show it. What if I worked for you? Jake asked suddenly. I could help you research your artifacts, write descriptions for them, help you understand what they are and where they came from. The dealer looked interested. What? You have experience with xenorchaeology? I'm a xenobiologist, but I know a lot about different cultures and their histories. And what about her? The dealer asked, pointing at Zara. What can she do? Was about to answer when Zara spoke up. I can tell you things about your customers that might help you sell to them, she said quietly. I can sense what they really want, whether they're serious buyers or just looking around, and whether they're planning to cheat you. The dealer's 6 arms started moving excitedly. You can do that? Try me, Zara said. Just then, another customer walked into the shop, a tall, well-dressed alien with blue skin and expensive-looking clothes. The dealer started to move toward him, but Zara grabbed Jake's arm. Wait, she whispered. He's not here to buy anything. He's nervous about something, and he keeps looking at the exit. I think he might be planning to steal something. Jake quietly translated for the dealer, who pretended to continue organizing his inventory while keeping an eye on the customer. Sure enough, after a few minutes, the blue-skinned alien tried to slip a small crystal into his jacket pocket. Excuse me, the dealer said politely. I believe you have something that belongs to me. The would-be thief looked shocked and quickly, put the crystal back, then hurried out of the shop. The dealer turned to Zara with new respect. How did you know? His heartbeat got faster when he looked at the crystal, Zara explained, and he kept touching his pocket, like he was planning where to put it. Plus, he smelled like fear. You can smell emotions. Fear has a smell. So does excitement, anger, and sadness. Most people don't notice it, but I've learned to pay attention. Dealer was practically vibrating with excitement. My dear, you could save me thousands of credits in stolen merchandise. I tell you what, you both work for me for 3 months, and the empathy amplifier is yours. Jake looked at Zara, who was smiling for the first time since they'd entered the shop. Deal, he said. 2 hours later, they were back in Jake's apartment, and Zara was holding the empathy amplifier in her hands. It was warm to the touch and seemed to pulse with a soft inner light. Are you ready to try it? Jake asked. Zara nodded and carefully placed the device on her head. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, suddenly, she gasped and her whole body went rigid. Zara, are you okay? She turned toward him, and Jake saw that her cloudy eyes were now glowing with the same soft light as the device. Jake, she whispered, I can see you. What do you mean? I can see your emotions, your thoughts, your intentions. Oh. They're like colors all around you and Jake. She paused and her voice was filled with wonder. You're beautiful. The change in Zara was incredible. The empathy amplifier on her head, she moved through Jake's apartment like a completely different person. She was more confident, more graceful, and there was something almost magical about the way she carried herself. This is amazing, she said, turning her head to look around the room. I can see the emotions that people have left behind in this space. Jake, you've been worried about me every single day since you brought me here. I can see it like golden threads in the air. Jake was fascinated. What else can you see? Everything, Zara said, her voice filled with wonder. The neighbor next door is sad because he misses his family. The person above us is excited about something, maybe a new job or a date. And there's someone 3 floors down who's angry about something that happened at work. You can sense people that far away? With this device? Yes. It's like the whole station has become visible to me in a way I never imagined. Over the next few days, word started spreading around the station about Zara's abilities. It began when Jake took her to work with him. His supervisor, Dr. Chen, was having trouble with a diplomatic meeting between 2 alien species who couldn't seem to agree on anything. Maybe Zara could help, Jake suggested. She's really good at understanding what people are feeling. Dr. Chen was skeptical, but he was also desperate. The meeting had been going on for 3 days with no progress. Zara sat quietly in the corner of the conference room while the 2 groups argued. One group was from a species that looked like walking trees, and the other looked like giant butterflies. They were supposed to be negotiating a trade agreement. They kept getting angry at each other over small details. After about an hour, Zara whispered to Jake, "The tree people aren't really angry about the trade terms. They're hurt because they think the butterfly people don't respect them. And the butterfly people are frustrated because they think the tree people are being too formal and don't want to be friends." Jake passed this information to Dr. Chen, who then suggested a break in the meeting. He spoke privately with both groups, explaining what Zara had observed. Within an hour, the 2 groups were laughing together and working out their trade agreement. "How did she know that?" Dr. Chen asked Jake afterward. "She can read emotions and intentions," Jake explained. "It's a gift that some of her people have." Word of what happened spread quickly through the station's diplomatic community. Soon, other people started asking for Zara's help with their problems. A merchant came to see her because he thought one of his business partners was cheating him. Zara spent 5 minutes talking to the partner and then told the merchant he's not cheating you, but he's scared that you're going to fire him. He's been working extra hours without pay because he thinks it will make you happy. A family asked for her help because their teenage daughter had been acting strange, and they were worried about her. Zara talked to the girl for a few minutes, and then explained to the parents, she's not in trouble. She's in love, and she's scared to tell you because she thinks you won't approve of who she likes. Every person who came to see Zara left feeling better than when they arrived. She had a way of helping people understand each other that Jake had never seen before. But the most amazing thing happened when a security officer brought her a case that had been puzzling the station's police for weeks. Someone had been stealing small items from shops around the station, but they could never catch the thief. "I can't solve crime," Zara told the officer. "I can only read people's emotions." "That's exactly what we need," the officer said. "We have 3 suspects, but we can't figure out which one is guilty." The officer brought in the 3 suspects one by one. The first was a young man who seemed nervous and kept sweating. The second was a middle-aged woman who answered all the questions calmly. The third was an older man who seemed angry about being questioned. After talking to all 3, Zara told the officer, "The young man is nervous because he's never been questioned by police before, but he's not guilty. The woman is calm because she's innocent and has nothing to hide. The older man is angry, but not because he's guilty. He's angry because this is the 3rd time this month he's been questioned about something he didn't do." The officer looked confused. "But if none of them did it, then who?" "You're asking the wrong question," Zara said. "You should be asking why. Someone would steal small, seemingly random items. I think your thief isn't stealing to sell things. They're stealing because they're collecting something specific, something that reminds them of home." She was right. It turned out the thief was a homesick alien who had been taking small items that reminded him of objects from his home planet. He wasn't selling them. He was keeping them in his room to make himself feel less lonely. News of Zara's successes spread throughout the station. People started calling her the princess who sees truth. Some came to her with relationship problems, others with business disputes, and some just wanted to understand why they were feeling sad or angry. Jake watched all of this with growing amazement and pride. The woman who had been sold at an auction as defective was now helping dozens of people every day. She was becoming exactly what the ancient texts had described, a healer and guide for her community. But Jake also noticed something else. Zara was changing in ways that went beyond her new abilities. She was standing taller, speaking more confidently, and there was a light in her eyes that hadn't been there before. She was becoming the person she was always meant to be.
You know what?
Funny, Zara said to Jake one evening as they sat in their apartment. I used to think that being blind was the worst thing that could happen to someone. But now I realize that most people are blind to the things that really matter. What do you mean? They can see colors and shapes and faces, but they can't see kindness or love or friendship. They can't see when someone is hurting or when someone needs help. In a way, I can see more than they can. Jake smiled. You definitely can. You've helped more people in the past month than I've helped in my entire career. That's because you gave me the chance to help, Zara said. If you hadn't bought me at that auction, I'd probably still be cleaning someone's spaceship or worse. You would have found a way to help people eventually, Jake said. That's just who you are. Zara turned toward him, and even though her physical eyes couldn't see him, Jake felt like she was looking straight into his soul. Jake, there's something I need to tell you. With this device, I can see things about people that they don't even know about themselves. What kind of things? I can see that you're not just helping me because you're a good person. You're helping me because you care about me. Really care about me. Jake felt his cheeks getting warm. Is that bad? No, Zara said with a smile. Wonderful, because I care about you too, more than I've ever cared about anyone. Jake looked at this amazing woman who had come into his life by accident and changed everything. She was nothing like what her people thought a princess should be, but she was everything that a princess actually was. Kind, wise, and dedicated to helping others. Zara, he said, I think you're the most beautiful person I've ever met. Though I don't look like other Luminari, especially because you don't look like other Luminari, you're unique, and that's what makes you special. For the first time since Jake had known her, Zara looked truly happy. It's not just content or grateful, but genuinely, deeply happy. And Jake realized that he had never been happier either. 3 months had passed since Zara first put on the empathy amplifier, and life on the station had never been better. She had become something of a legend. People came from other levels, other sections, even other stations to meet with the princess. Who sees truth? Jake had to move to a bigger apartment just to handle all the visitors. Zara now had a proper office where she could meet with people who needed her help. She had helped solve dozens of conflicts, prevented several crimes, even helped the station's government avoid a major diplomatic incident. But on a quiet Tuesday morning, everything changed. Jake was in the kitchen making breakfast when he heard unfamiliar voices in the hallway outside their apartment. The voices were speaking in Luminari, which Jake had learned to recognize even though he couldn't understand it. Zara, he called out, I think someone's here to see you. Zara came out of her office, the empathy amplifier glowing softly on her head. As soon as she stepped into the main room, her expression changed. The color drained from her face, and she looked scared for the first time since Jake had known her. They're here, she whispered. Who's here? Before Zara could answer, there was a firm knock on the door. Jake opened it to find 5 tall, glowing Luminari standing in the hallway. They were exactly like the pictures Jake had seen, beautiful, elegant, and radiating that famous inner light. Their leader was an older woman wearing elaborate robes that seemed to be made of starlight. Princess Zara, the woman said in perfect English, I am Ambassador Lyra of the Luminari Council. We have come to bring you home. Jake felt his heart sink. He had always known this day might come, but he had hoped it would be later, much later. I don't want to go home, Zara said quietly, but her voice was steady. You don't have a choice, Ambassador Lyra said. Word of your ... abilities has reached the homeworld. The council has decided that you are too valuable to remain in exile. Valuable? Jake said, feeling anger rising in his chest. 3 months ago, you people sold her at an auction because you thought she was worthless. Ambassador Lyra looked at Jake like he was a bug she wanted to step on. The council's previous decision was made without full information. We now understand that Princess Zara has gifts that could be useful to our people. Useful how? Zara asked. There are conflicts on the homeworld that need resolution. Trade disputes with other species that require someone with your particular talents. The council believes you could serve your people well in these matters. Jake could see what was happening. The Luminar government had heard about Zara's success, and now wanted to use her for their own purposes. They didn't care about her as a person, they just wanted to use her abilities. What if I refuse? Zara asked. You cannot refuse, Ambassador, Lyra said. You are a princess of the royal bloodline. You have duties to your people? My people cast me out, Zara said, her voice getting stronger. My own family was ashamed of me. Don't owe them anything. That was a mistake, Ambassador Lyra admitted. One that we are now prepared to correct. You will be given a palace, servants, anything you desire. All we ask is that you use your gifts to serve the greater good of the Luminari people. Jake watched Zara's face as she listened to this offer. With the empathy amplifier, she could probably sense exactly what these people were really thinking and feeling. And from the look on her face, she didn't like what she was sensing. You don't want to correct any mistakes, Zara said quietly. You want to control me? You want to use my abilities for your own benefit? And you're afraid that if you don't take me back now, I'll become too powerful for you to control later. Ambassador Lyra's perfect composure cracked slightly. Your insights are impressive, Princess. All the more reason why you belong with your own people. These are my people, Zara said, gesturing around the apartment. Jake, Dr. Chen, the merchants and families and visitors who come to see me, they're the ones who accepted me when I had nothing. They're the ones who helped me become who I am. You are being emotional, Ambassador, Lyra said dismissively. We'll pack your belongings and come with us. Transport leaves in 2 hours. No. The word hung in the air like a challenge. Jake had never heard Zara sound so determined. I beg your pardon, Ambassador Lyra said. I said no. I'm not going with you. Princess Zara, you are a citizen of the Luminari Empire. We have the legal right to bring you home. It's actually Jake said, stepping forward. You don't. Everyone turned to look at him. Jake's hands were shaking, but he continued talking. According to Galactic Council law, which the Luminari Empire signed, any being who has been legally sold and purchased is considered a free citizen of whatever station or planet they currently reside on. Zara is now a legal citizen of Nexus 7 Station. Ambassador Lyra's eyes flashed with anger. You bought her illegally. The transaction has no legal standing. The auction was legal under station law, Jake said. I have all the documentation. And since then, Zara has established residency here, has a job here, and has contributed to the community. She has every right to stay. This is ridiculous, Ambassador Lyra said. She is a princess. She's also a person, Jake said. Gets to choose her own life. Ambassador Lyra turned back to Zara. Think about what you're giving up. Power, wealth, position. You could rule alongside the council. You could shape the future of our entire species. I'm already shaping the future, Zara said. I'm helping people understand each other. I'm solving conflicts and bringing peace. I'm doing exactly what the ancient texts said people like me were supposed to do. The ancient texts are just stories, Ambassador Lyra said dismissively. No, they're not, Zara said. They're the truth that your people forgot. You became so focused on physical beauty and material wealth that you forgot what really matters. Zara stood up and walked over to Jake. I choose to stay here. This is where I belong. Ambassador Lyra looked furious. You're making a mistake. Princess, this offer will not come again. Good, Zara said. I don't want it to. The Luminari delegation left, but not before Ambassador Lyra warned them that this wasn't over. Jake and Zara stood at the window, watching their ship disappear into the darkness of space. Are you sure you made the right choice? Jake asked. Absolutely sure, Zara said. Jake, with this device, I can see the truth about people. Those ambassadors didn't want to help me or honor me. They wanted to own me. What do you want to do now? Zara smiled. I want to keep helping people. I want to keep learning about different species and cultures, and I want to do it with you. With me, Jake, you saved my life, not just at the auction, but every day since then. You helped me become who I was meant to be. You showed me that my differences weren't flaws, they were gifts. Jake felt tears in his eyes. You saved my life too, Zara. Before I met you, I was just going through the motions. You showed me what it means to really help people. So what do you say? Partners? Jake smiled. Partners? 6 months later, Jake and Zara had opened their own consultation service. They helped resolve conflicts between different species, solved crimes that required understanding people's true motivations, and provided counseling for anyone who needed it. They traveled to different stations and planets, always together, always, helping people understand each other better. Zara's reputation spread throughout the galaxy, and she became known as the princess who chose love over power. And Jake became known as the man who was smart enough to see beauty where others saw only flaws, and brave enough to help that beauty shine. They never got married in any formal ceremony, but they didn't need to. They had something much stronger than legal documents. They had complete understanding and trust in each other. Sometimes, late at night, Jake would watch Zara as she worked at her desk, the empathy amplifier glowing softly around her head as she read reports and prepared to help. The next day's visitors, she was still the same person he had met at that awful auction. But she was also completely transformed. She had found her purpose, her power, and her place in the galaxy. And somehow, Jake had found his place right beside her. The ugly duckling had become a beautiful swan, not by changing how she looked, but by embracing who she truly was. And Jake had learned that sometimes the most valuable things in life are the ones that other people throw away. Their stories spread throughout the galaxy, inspiring other people to look beyond surface appearances and see the real beauty that exists. In kindness, wisdom, and love, they lived happily ever after, not because their lives were perfect, but because they had found something worth fighting for each other, the chance to make the galaxy a little bit better. One person at